Good morning and thank you very much for joining us. Hope you had a great weekend. Okay, before we go on to our program today, a bit of unfinished business from our program on Friday when we were looking at the subject matter of the minor, shall we say, cabinet reshuffle of President Muhammadu Buhari. Well, in the course of that conversation, we had a couple of guests, and one of them, Mr. Monday Onyekachi Obani, had made a statement that has since been determined to be patently untrue, in other words, false. And the Ministry of Labor, I beg your pardon, the Ministry of Works, Works and Housing, still under their umbrella, has reacted to that statement. That is to say, officials from there, because immediately we couldn't take the matter up, but investigating it later on, the Ministry of Labor officials said that they would not come on, they would not deign to, elevate it beyond where it was. But it was patently untrue and was quite surprising to them. Mr. Monday Onyekachi Obani had said on our program on Friday the following, in quote, coming about even roads. A contract of over 13 billion naira was awarded the Ikot Ekene Ikwano Road in 2019. And as I speak to you, that is Mr. Monday Onyekachi Obani speaking, and as I speak to you now, nobody can pass through that road. 13 billion naira awarded by Fashola to two companies that I have gone to investigate have no competence to do that thing, and up till now, nothing is happening on the road that is Ikot Ekene Ikwano Road in 2019. And he had even said, he added that I want to do a publication in a national newspaper by next week, and I want to raise it to the presidency. I want to raise alarm because I have always said it, they will award contract on Ikot Ekene Ikwano Road for many, many years. Every government will do it. Nothing will happen. The people cannot deliver. It is a family business, either wife or children who are directors of those two companies. Now, the two companies he's talking about are Messrs. Heartland and Raycon Construction Nigeria Limited. The ministry official that we spoke with had, said, among other things, that those people can speak for themselves, but that everything that was said on our program was patently untrue. And they felt, they gave us, they advised us that a lot of people out there do not simply understand, if they are not close to governance or what is it again, government, or they're not professional, they do not understand that the awarding of a contract and the announcement of same is not tantamount to actually paying the contractor the announced sum. So that's the first thing that they wanted to make sure. They also thought that it was unfortunate that Mr. Obani had seemed to denigrate a Nigerian firm, in the persons of Mrs. Heartland and Raycon Construction Nigeria Limited, because the facts he cited were totally false. The ministry had pointed out that the contractors had not even submitted, nor have they been paid even 1 billion naira yet. And they said it's particularly remarkable, to the extent of the untruth, because this very company, according to the Ministry of Labor, has actually been doing commendable work on another site where they have been better funded, budgetary constraints being allowed. And they cited the Bende Arochukwu or Hafia Road Section 1 in Abia State. Then the other point that they also thought that they would just, assist us with is that the minister does not award contracts. And even though Mr. Obani had suggested otherwise, say, look, anybody who knows anything about it knows that there are at least two levels, depending on the category of the contract. Ministerial Tenders Board, that's one. And there's also the Federal Executive Council, where just about everybody in government comes in on a matter and approves it. But even when it is approved, it does not mean the sum is paid to these people. They had thought that we had guests on that day that were much more knowledgeable than all of the what I'm talking about should have come on. So there's a sense in which I accept responsibility in that I didn't have the presence, as it were, to grab that and interrogate it further. But we did get in touch later on and say, look, this would be grievous. What do you say about this? And they say they heard it too and weren't going to get in touch. So we thought we'd just clear that out. It's unfortunate that for 2 days, between Friday and today, when this program is now coming out, the public, some people might have gone away with the impressions that the Ministry of Works and Housing has, been striving to let us understand that there's no such thing like that. 13 billion naira contract. They have not been awarded, neither have they have not been paid, neither have they claimed up to $1 billion yet. And they also added the commentary that, well, whereas Mrs. Heartland and Raycon Construction Nigeria Limited can speak for themselves, they thought it was, not in the best taste to be denigrating a Nigerian company. You can't give everything to foreigners anyway. And they just say that is just by the way. So I hope I've sort of put that a bit more in context. Usually we try to get another person, but the commentary came from Mr. Ubani totally out of context. We weren't talking about that kind of a thing. We were talking about the minor reshufflement when Mr. Ubani threw that particular piece in. And the Minister of Labour, thankfully, has given us what I've just explained. So, hoping that has cleared things up a bit, we'll now go on to our program today. And today we thought we'd look at the communication shutdown in Zamfara State as part of government's, shall we say, intensifying their campaign against banditry in Zamfara State and its environs. It's a pretty, I don't know whether to call it extreme, but we haven't had this done before. It does seem to show that maybe they're taking the whole battle against robbers, bandits, kidnappers, and the like to another level. Well, my guests this morning, quite a number of them, well, if we can get all of them, but I'm very thankful that we have Hassan Abdul Aziz Sani. He's an opinion molder and communications professional in the studio. Thank you very much for coming on.
Good morning, Mr. Ori, and good morning, Nigerians.
Indeed, our pleasure. We hope to also be speaking with a military specialist, Group Captain Sunday, Sadiq Garba Shehu, retired. He is the former Deputy Head of Security at the AU Commission, African Union Commission in Addis Ababa, as well as the adjunct professor at George C. Marshall European Center for Security Studies in Germany. He is currently a private security and defense consultant and trainer. We shall be catching up with Colonel Sonny, retired, later on. But let me start from studio. First of all, we have a package. We have a report that will sort of put it all in context, and then we'll come back and continue with my guest, and indeed with your very good selves out there with the phone-ins that you make.
Zamfara State has been a hotbed of criminal activities ranging from banditry, kidnapping, and farmer-heather clashes for over a decade. The resurgence of attacks on communities and mass abduction of persons and students in recent times is worrisome. Communities in Zurmi, Bakura, Bungudung, Safi, Bukuyun, Shinkafi, and Maru local government areas have in the last 1 week suffered deadly attacks by the bandits. The bandits have even launched an attack on a police outpost, killing a police officer and other victims. This prompted the state governor Bello Matawali and security agencies in the state to take stringent measures aimed at addressing the problem. The state government has ordered the closure of all schools and weekly markets, suspended transportation of livestock beyond the state borders, restricted movement of motorcycles from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., while transportation of food items will be subject to verification. This decision has not gone down well with some residents, especially traders and those in the cattle business. We are not happy with the decision because it will affect our income and our businesses. Government should devise another means of addressing insecurity. They know the best way out.
We are committed to assist government in tackling insecurity, but we are calling on the government to open our weekly markets. There is hunger in the land.
The Nigerian Communication Commission (NCC) has also shut down all communication services in the state in order to cut off communication to criminal elements. The shutdown is to last for 2 weeks. Some residents consider the move and other measures as a step in the right direction, while others bemoan the action.
I'm okay with all the measures the government have taken to end the insecurity in the states.
It's a very welcome development to us because we have seen the spread of insecurity affecting the economic and social life of the people. We have to sacrifice this period in order to forestall peace in the state.
Many communities have fled their communities and abandoned their farms and livestock due to incessant attacks by the bandits. Authorities in the state says Zamfara has over 600,000 displaced persons as a result of banditry. This decision is coming 6 months after the federal government has declared Zamfara a no-fly zone and banned all mining activities in the state. Residents are hopeful that this decision taken by the government will bring a lasting end to over a decade insecurity bedeviling the state. Theophilus Darufai, TVC News, Gusau.
Okay, welcome back. And first of all, welcome to our Nigerian viewers because of the live broadcast that was going on before this. I understand that Nigerian viewers were not actually able to see how we opened. And well, all of that will be in the repeat edition, but as some will recall, I did open by, some unfinished business from Friday, whereupon the Ministry of Works and Housing has reacted to what they have said it was a patently false statement by one of our guests on Friday, on the Friday program, wherein he had spoken about a road and had alleged that that road was just lying there. Nothing had been done about it. He was talking to I think it was the Ikorekpene-Ikwano road, and I made the point that the ministry official had debunked all of that and said that that is not true. And it also made the point that the minister does not, award contracts individually and singly. It's either the Ministerial Tenders Board or the Federal Executive Council, among other things. So, but all of that, quite copious rebuttal, as reported from what the ministry gave us, is in the first part of the program, which I'm just understanding, unfortunately, was not available to Nigerian viewers, but was available to our international audience. Everything, however, will be available when it comes to the time for the repeat program. But we then went on to our substance for the day, which is the communication shutdown. The Nigeria Communications Commission has ordered telcos operating around Zamfara State. That is their operations around. The telcos operate everywhere in Nigeria, but in relation to their work around Zamfara State, they've been ordered to shut down communication, and NCC has actually put it out, and you just heard that report. Now, going back to my guest that I introduced earlier, but just because we're coming into Nigeria now, that's Hassan Abdulaziz Sani, opinion molder and communications pro. We'll also be joining Group Captain Sadiq Garba Shehu, retired, later on. So now we have it, Alhaji Hassan, we have it. It's a pretty, it's a very serious move. I don't recall that we've ever done it before. You understand, you see the reason for this kind of a move?
Yes, quite okay. We need to juxtapose the two aspects of it. The shutting down, the economic implication of it, and the security implication of it, side by side. Based on the report, there was a shutdown of 248 base stations in Zamfara State. These base stations served as transceivers for the wireless communication outfits, and it serviced both people on the voice and people on the internet aspect of it. And people are going to be affected. We knew the economic implication of it because commercial, anything economy goes via communication.
Exactly.
But when you look at it from this aspect also of the security challenges in that axis, then we need to juxtapose the two, bring them together so that we can have a well-informed conclusion about it. Are we to go for the life of the people to save them, or we save the communication that oil the powerhouse of the bandits? What the governor said here is very clear to all of us. They said, look, whenever the military are deploying, the informants pick their phones and inform the bandits that the military are on their ways. Either they run away or they ambush them. And this is a setback for fighting against banditry in the northwestern Nigeria.
Indeed. Alhaji Sani, you shall actually continue, but you've established that there is a warfare aspect to communication. That much, as you've just shown, could actually happen. Now, this is what I want to bring to, because I understand we've been joined now by Group Captain Sadiq Garba Shehu, retired. Good morning, Group Captain.
Good morning.
Okay, we hope the lines will cooperate. But this measure that we were speaking about, where communications have been ordered shut down, telecommunications, have been ordered shut down in Zamfara state as a result of perhaps a fresh initiative by government to prosecute the war against criminality, banditry, and all of that. First of all, would you put it in context, please? This kind of a thing, how frequently is it used? And maybe you could also sort of generally explain what's going on there in this new order.
Well, thank you. First, I would like to say it is reasonable to assume that the request for the shutdown emanated from security agencies, whether military, whether police, whether DSS, all the security agencies. And normally you will get this request if you want to do some special operation of a short duration. Because I want to believe the people who requested for this are not oblivious of the fact, like my colleague on the studio,
yes,
in the studio also said, that when you cut some communication in modern life, for the modern man, communication, telecommunication, in every aspect of life, even personal security itself. So it is a two-edged. So again, when you look again at the security, at the communication, all parties involved with security. The military also uses, the communication. The bandits will use communication. The informants will use communication. Other independent, innocent civilians will also use communication. So when you cut it, definitely there are some unintended consequences that will come. But when you have such measures, you want to stop banditry, you want to stop crime, it's a balancing act. You look at the good and the bad. The people of Zamfara need to understand that sometimes they have to pay some price for the security forces to be able to, to carry out their operations. However, what is necessary is always to balance the good and the bad, and to make sure that the period for which this communication is caught is made as short as necessary, as short as possible, and only as long as necessary. Definitely the prices that people living there will pay. But then if in the long run it results in massive, action against the bandits, I think everybody will be happy. But definitely it is something that government should maybe sensitize the people that maybe it is part of their own sacrifice to make sure that we bring this issue to a conclusive end. Yeah,
because the point has already been made that it's going to have an economic implication, and this is the balancing act that you were talking about. There was a time when we didn't have communication as ubiquitous as we do now, but we've got used to it pretty fast. Now, in terms of how it works, when you shut down, such as this operation, when communication is shut down, the military, I imagine, would have their own lines of communication that are not in the public domain, so that they can communicate with each other. Because, or is that not the case? The military will still have to, security, military, police, they will still have to communicate amongst themselves, even if ordinary citizens can't?
Yes, ideally, and here I say ideally. Sometimes the ideal is not obtainable. Ideally, security agencies, including military, should have their own different secure means of communication, which is not used by commercial. But I said ideally, because again, as we are raising this issue, I think it is something that the political masters and policymakers should look at. Do the military, do the security have their own secure form of communication? I will not be able to answer that in the affirmative or in the negative, but it is something to look at. Ideally, security agencies should be able to have their own secure means of communication, not using MTN,
exactly,
and all the other networks. No, that is not supposed to be.
Maybe
that
an entirely different frequency.
So if we don't have, I said if, because I do not know.
I hear you.
Yes, but a different frequency.
Maybe they
yes, they should have their own. So that even when they clamp down on, because like I said, they too need communication. They need to communicate, but not communicating in the other commercial means that every other citizen is using. If we don't have, again, that shows why it is necessary now to clamp down on, on the general user network. Had it been the military have their own way, or the other securities have their own secure means of communication, different from the commercial means, maybe the effect on the general user line would be less.
Yes, yes. Okay. Coming back to studio, Alhaji Hassan, you just heard that from the explanation he gave, and he said he is not really able to say one way or the other, but that ideally that should be the case, where specialist forces would have, a unique frequency that only they are able to use on their own sets. But I imagine it's a simple thing to hand this kind of sets out, if indeed that was the case. He said he's not able to confirm. What do you think?
That's true. That's true. And even after confirmation, it should be something that should be kept in secrecy, because it has to do with security. That's number one. But the security arms should have their own independent communication wireless, different from this non-mobile devices.
I thought, but please, people can come in on the matter. I would have thought that these frequencies, that everything works on a certain frequency. GSM is on a certain frequency. I don't know. Governments, as we have seen in documentary films, when America, for instance, it decides that it wants to go over Pablo Escobar or Osama bin Laden, they begin to operate on a totally different frequency, such that you cannot intercept. Now, I'm not saying that we're the same as America, but with that principle in mind, that the group captain has said that, well, he's not about to come down on one way or the other. It then would seem a very workable idea. You just give them a unique frequency. You don't have the set. There are even satellite phones, but those are not the same.
No, you see, even military intelligence we are seeing, they have their own means of communication where they can track whosoever. You understand?
Exactly.
So it's a security issue. It's not something that we should come here on set and be saying it. I don't think Nigerian military, all this year long, that they don't have this kind of a thing. I don't think so. But even if they have it, it's not for us to come and disclose it here. And secondly, you see, this issue of devices, why this issue of mobile network come to fore about Zamfara, is about people informing the bandits.
Exactly, that's the whole point.
And bandit, getting informed, understand, beforehand. And then casualties were recorded, and there was a kind of setback in the fight against the banditry.
Simply because they knew every move, more or less.
No, we have moles. They even have moles in our midst. There are people that volunteer information to them, for pay. You understand? And they are in our midst, and they communicate with them freely. It's much more like the criminals are united, while we, the populace, are in disarray. That is what you are seeing about this fight. And when you look at the network now. The Zamfara population is about 4.3 million people, and they have 248 base stations in Zamfara, covering the land space of over 15 100,000 square miles scattered all over the base stations. Now, there was a shutdown. Shutdown in the sense that most of these lapses, of security lapses, come from the accessibility of criminals to information given to them by the moles in our midst to them.
Via the GSM networks.
Via the devices. You understand? And now, what we are seeing here is this. We need to juxtapose the two. The two here is this.
And find the balance.
The economic loss.
Exactly, as you said at the beginning.
The loss of human lives. We have two things to contend with. So it's about pros and cons now.
Sure.
Look at it very well. Are we to sacrifice the people for properties, for economic reasons? Because you must be alive for you to acquire whatsoever. And the main essence of governance in the whole world is to protect the lives and the properties of the people.
Indeed.
And you can only be alive for you to acquire properties.
Okay. Group Captain, I'm going to come straight back to you, but I've got to go on a commercial break. Stay with us, please. Okay, welcome back. And we're looking at the shutdown of communications. It's a kind of shutdown in a way. That's what governments around the world are loath to do. But in this case, it's a telecommunications shutdown. And we've just been hearing from Alhaji some of his ideas about it. We also had with us Group Captain Sadiq Garba Shehu, retired, and he will be joining us, presently, because this has to be sorted out again. Because the question I wanted to bring to the former military officer is, look, the capabilities of government to actually, I know that there are laws in place for snooping, anti-snooping laws for government in a democracy. You're not even supposed to snoop, even though people have the notion or the idea that you have to be careful about what you say on your phone and how you use your phone, because you never know who might be listening. The question I wanted to bring to bear was that some of these moles that we're talking about causing problems, surely government must be able to identify them. I was wondering what the challenge with that is. Rather than, before government would have made this considered decision to ask NCC to shut down the communications in those areas, might the government not have been able to do a much more surgical thing, which is simply identify these enemies of state, so to speak, and, immobilize them? What do you think are the technical abilities in that regard?
Mr. Yori, you see, in most cases, we always put things, on the table of the government, even where we are at fault. Look at it here. The service providers should be able to monitor some calls and forward the communication to the security agent for actions. That is one aspect.
Well, it is one aspect, but it's a very problematic aspect because you have a right to privacy, and that's a problem right there. You have a right to privacy. So if we were to go that route, and then Big Brother begins to monitor all the calls going out, it just wouldn't do. In fact, in some countries, you need a direct court order before you can do so.
The issue is this. Anything that has to do with security, you understand, privacy can be invaded.
After you give courts probable cause.
Do you know
You've
what?
Do you know
why I'm saying this, Mr. Yori? You see, where your own right starts.
I hear and I understand.
That is where another man's own right ends. It is not for you. Even the rights we are all talking about, you must qualify for the right.
I hear you.
For you to exercise those rights.
I hear you, but when you made the statement that government should be able to monitor, NCC should be able to monitor certain calls, without doubt, I'm sure they were able to, but maybe they will do so. Do you get the point I'm making about democracy and freedom of speech without people eavesdropping, which is not in any way, shape, or form negating what you said about the importance of security. But in that case, at least the way it's done elsewhere, is that you will have to show a court probable cause, whereupon the court will grant the order uniquely for those that are so identified.
The situation in Zamfara.
Otherwise, nobody is private anymore.
Mr. Yori, the situation in Zamfara, you understand, allowed and even gave a room for whoever is conscious about ending the insecurity to invade the privacy of anybody that is a threat to security.
I hear you. But
and while you are looking at it, we will never get there. Because if you wait for court orders, human rights will come in, fundamental whatsoever will come in, all sort of a thing will come in, and people are dying. People are losing their source of livelihood. The issue is this, Mr. Yori, people don't know what people in that axis are going through. Yeah. People neighboring the states, Katsina axis, you understand, Kaduna axis, neighboring Zamfara, are going through serious crisis. And let me tell you, before you know it, this issue will begin to reflect in our pot of soup, on our dining tables, because it will constitute a threat to food security in Nigeria.
These points have already been made by, I think, the Northern Elders Forum.
Look, let me tell you what really happened. Look, neighboring Zamfara, very close to Zamfara, Funtua, you understand?
Please continue.
Neighboring Zamfara in Funtua, there are some big farms owned by big-time farm owners. And those areas are no-go areas now. Let me name them for you. Around Funtua, you have a former, the farm that belongs to senior Sheikh Musa Adwa, Sambu Farms, in that Aziz. You have a farm that belongs to Mama Nasir. You have a farm that belongs to Garba Amani. You have a farm that belongs to late Colonel Mansour. You have farms that belong to a lot of big men that are big-time farmers. So those areas, I'm talking of from Funtua, Daudawa, Shemi, Ankara, Kadisau, Paskari, Megora, Dandime. Yes, so all these areas, and those areas are no-go areas now. People cannot farm. When Buhari came in as a military head of state, it was in the farm of Garba Amani that the go back to farm was launched. That area now is a hotbed of the bandits. And that area is neighboring Zamfara. Yankara is very close to Magazu Kucheri. And Magazu, Kucheri, Tsahe, Kwatarkwashi are all in Zamfara state. And all these areas are no-go areas for now.
And so, yes, what we're saying is that therefore, this is very necessary. Mazi Okorafo, you've been holding on for a while. Good morning, sir, and thank you. Mazi Okorafo, can you hear us? Please go ahead now. It's going to be one of those. It's going to be one of those kind of days. I'm understanding that the lines are what they are, and also we're trying to get back Group Captain Sadiq Garba Sheikh, who retired.
Apart from these big-time farmers I mentioned to you, we have many uncountable numbers of people
we're talking
that
about,
are big-time farmers in that axis.
Yeah, but why you're mentioning all these big-time farmers is because of their contribution to the food basket.
To the food basket.
And how this is going to
and
impact.
Those areas now are inaccessible now.
Okay, so even before
because banditry is deeply rooted in those areas. Daudawa, Sheme, Ruongodia, Paskari, Kadisau, Begora.
I think the point of what you're saying is I think the point of what you're saying is that in the immediate term, it's going to be very much the same as has already been experienced for the reasons of the instability caused by robbers and all these people.
Yes.
So it's worth it. That, yes, because even if they hadn't gone this way, this was pretty much the situation already.
You must be alive to go into any commercial activities. You must be alive to procreate. You must be alive to do everything. And if this is threatened, everything will be defeated.
This is for a period. I think
it's for a period.
2 weeks in the first instance.
Yes, 2 weeks.
2 weeks in the first instance. They'll see how it goes. If there's a need, in fact, we couldn't call our man over there. We were just about every organization. I imagine will have a correspondent, but we couldn't get our correspondent has had to remove himself from that. Shall we say it has now become deaf mute to people who use communication. You can't hear anything and you can't say anything.
Yes,
but it's all for a good purpose.
It's also affected. A lot of things will be affected because the economy activities revolves around communication.
Please continue. Sorry, I don't.
So when you look at it this way, it's worth it. It's worth it. So please, I really sympathize with the people in that axis for what they are going through. But let us give government chance to experiment this issue of cutting the criminals off.
Okay.
and deal with the bandits.
Group Captain Shehu, thank you, retired. Thank you for, I understand we have you back. When you were away, I wanted to ask you the question of, before government went this way, which is a wholesale blanket, as it were, I wanted to ask, how difficult is it to identify those enemies, even if they're among us, those enemies that are, as it were, just communicating with all these kidnappers and bandits and terrorists? Could government not identify them, one by one and disable them? Was the question that I had asked, and I've got some perspective on, as opposed to this blanket kind of a measure.
The technology exists, to track phone calls, to know where they are made, and then get the timings and the person who made the phone calls. But again, we have to admit that we are not a technologically advanced country. It's possible our security agencies have not reached that level. Having said that, again, imagine the little effort it takes a villager who is an informant of kidnappers or bandits to just go back into his room and make a call. It is very difficult, to pinpoint such people and get them, even with the help of technology. Now, having to add another issue to the fact of the other effect of cutting the communication, even as we all agree that it is for a good purpose. It's not only there's tendency to only be thinking about the economic act, but it's not only economic activity. There are health and security issues there also. Yeah. For example, if somebody has an accident, if somebody has a medical emergency, the normal way is to rely on your communication to look for a doctor or to call for even police or the military to come. So all these services will also be affected. So without overflowing the issue, definitely it's a desperate measure to ensure that our security are able to operate effectively and get to these bandits. However, we must always put at the back of the mind that there are economic, there are health, there are security issues also for which it will affect the general populace. So I still come back to my core that the move, good as it is, should be made as short as possible and only as long as necessary. I want to appeal, and I'm sure that's what our security forces are doing, to use this window of shutting down the communication to achieve whatever big achievements we can record within as short time as possible. Because definitely, if you continue the clampdown on security again, it will create some unintended consequences, including again consequences on lives and property as well.
Maybe that's why government has sort of limited this to 2 weeks in the first instance, if I'm correct. This particular
I missed that part about 2 weeks. If it is good, I've not heard it, but if it is so, I think that is.
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, I want to thank you if you can still hear us. Group Captain Sadiq Garba Shehu, retired. Reverend Dominic, good morning, sir, and thank you for holding on. I understand you've been doing so for an inordinately long time. Please go ahead now.
Good morning, Yori.
Good morning, Reverend.
Good morning, your guest.
Yes.
Good morning, Reverend Dominic.
Yori, when I had this instruction or this order, to me, I laughed to myself. It's laughable. Yori, do you know why it's laughable?
Why?
Why do you want to shut down a state where people are doing business because of bandits? Let me give you an example. When Shaka was dead, it was a newspaper in France that hacked into the conversations of the bandit or the Boko Haram. Why not our intelligence officers here hacking into the discussion, hacking into the sponsors, and fish them out? But in order for you not to do that, you have to shut down the life of Zamfara State. People who do business, people who live on how are you and not how are you, and the text message, and why do you shut down? Why the intelligence community can hack into the system? So the same telecommunication system. If a France newspaper could hack into bandits to tell them to know when they say Shaka is dead, what is happening to our own intelligence software? But no wonder, sometimes last month, police cried out that the contractor that helped them to do the hacking has not been paid. So nobody is wanting anybody. That measure is wrong. You're in number two, if you can allow me. There's no mole in Nigeria. The mole in this issue we have been fighting, this war has gone too long, is the governors of the northern state, political leaders of the northern state, business leaders of northern state.
Wait now, Reverend.
Yes,
Reverend, you see, how can you say the governors themselves are the moles? I mean,
yes.
the very notion sounds preposterous. That
yes,
governors...
I stand by my words. Let me give you an example. In Zamfara State, sir, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
In Zamfara State, the governors have entered into alliance with these bandits. Take pictures with them. In Katsina State, the governor of Katsina State has entered into alliance with these bandits. Took pictures with them. The pictures are in the media. Now they have given them jollof rice, they have given them chicken, they have given them ashebi. This is the bandit.
Reverend Dominic, you have the right to say what you will, but I think we're going to have to draw the line on our program at saying that governors themselves no less are in alliance with these bandits. I don't know what proof you have, and if you know it, I imagine that the federal authorities would have known it before you, Reverend Dominic. I just thought we had to say that. But thank you for calling in all the same. It's very interesting the way this whole situation has gone, so that maybe there's trust is completely missing in the society now. Because if responsible citizens are willing to consider the notion that governors will be enemies of their own people that they superintend over, give me your thoughts on that notion.
With due respect to Reverend Dominic, at times I saw him as a person that always say things out of his mind. I don't think a governor...
He will speak his mind. That's what you're saying.
Out of his mind. He speaks out of his mind.
That is, he will speak his mind.
No, out of his mind. I know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
This is the second time Reverend Dominic is talking like this. When I spoke about Akeredolu, he came here, he took me to cleaners. And
but I don't want you to make this a personal thing.
And one thing is very clear. Without him taking into cognizance the communique read by the governor himself. And I don't think a governor, any governor in his right senses, will wish his own state, you understand,
exactly.
to be engulfed in crisis.
That's the point. That is
because
why I am incredulous myself. The only way I am incredulous. No governor can work against his own people.
Every politician wants to be praised at the end of his tenure.
Okay.
And he wanted to remain relevant for life.
Let me bring in Ada's call coming in from Jos. Good morning, Madam Ada.
Yes, Ada from Jos. Good morning to your guests there. I don't know if you're still on the Zamfara thing, the communication cutoff.
That's right. That's what we're still talking about.
Because, it's unfortunate we have got to this level now. That the level of insecurity has got to that point. Mm-hmm. But it's a welcome development if that will help the military to force the bandits or terrorists out. But I think it will be more effective if they can do it in a more coordinated form, and also do it simultaneously with all the adjoining states to Zamfara. Even if they shut that place down for 1 month and do it, in a coordinated form, all the adjoining states, it will make more minutes. It will be more effective. People will That's the price we pay for such a case. You know, it shall be well with Nigeria. Let's not give up on this country. That's my take.
Thank you very much for calling in. The order already says that it's not just in Zamfara state where you said all those base stations were, but also adjoining areas. Since we know that there are spillovers when it comes to communication, it can be watertight compartments. So what Ada was bringing up, I imagine they also have thought about as well. But Ada did say surrounding states. I don't think they need to go as far. I don't know.
No. What we saw in Zamfara now is an experiment.
Okay.
It's an experiment. If it works for them, you understand, it will be extended to the neighboring state of Katsina, Kaduna, and even some areas in Kano State.
Okay.
In northwestern Nigeria.
So it's like it's a situation that we have to manage. We haven't seen it before, but then there is probably
you can see the synergy. You can see the synergy of the governors.
Indeed.
Most of the actions taken by the Zamfara State Governor were taken by Niger State Governor, were taken by Katsina State Governor, were taken by Kaduna State Governor, and even Kano State Governor.
Okay. Thank you very much, Alhaji Hassan Abdulaziz Sani, opinion molder and communications professional. And also our thanks to Group Captain Sadiq Garba Shehu, retired, and indeed to you at home that called in to the program. So that's our program today. Please consider government's offer of the COVID vaccine. Consider taking it up. That's about as much as I want to say about that this morning. Maybe tomorrow I'll add the ones that you know I usually add, including washing your hands, socially safe social distancing, and masking up. Okay, I managed to slip them all in. So I'll see you tomorrow, God willing, with a fresh edition. Yori Folani. Bye-bye for now.